Hello and welcome to Categories Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.categories.com. My name is Jason J. Rock Houston. I'm really happy to be speaking with a good friend of the show's, Mark Lanoue. And Mark, we've interviewed you a number of times for the show. Usually it's been for either Farmer Bob or your other band, Fiction Syxx. So we're going to be talking about those. But you've got a new project that you want to talk about, Kick the Wicked. So we'll start the interview off with that. If you could share with us what Kick the Wicked is, how long it's been together, and what your plans for that are.
Sure. Well, Kick the Wicked is really so. Farmer Bob, we have several members. They're core members, which are myself. There's Scott Campbell and Rory Fashion, and we basically put together over like 40 tributes and all different kinds of stuff, all the way back to like rock, metal,
everything.
Bee Gees are crying out loud. But anyway, so what happened is after doing that for a while, we realized that there was a lot of chemistry between us, and so we decided to move it into more of the original space. And so essentially that became Kick the Wicked.
Now let me ask you, because I think you or Scott were telling me when I interviewed you guys in the past that Farmer Bob initially started because of when COVID hit. Was that correct?
Yeah, so it started during the pandemic. We wanted to kind of do something, fun and exciting, and maybe share it with the other people that were locked down. So we started off with Triumph. So we went right out of the gate. We went for Fight the Good Fight. So we went right for one of the tough classics, and we pulled it off really nicely. So we decided to just start moving from there, and now people can go listen to, like I said, over like 40 different tributes that we've done so far. We're actually working on a couple more right now, Zebra and some others as well.
I really urge people to go check that stuff out, because it's a fun little project, and as somebody like me who's just a music lover myself, I mean, they're fun tunes, fun videos to look at. I mean, one of the videos that I really think stood out to me, you guys did a cool video for your cover of Living After Midnight, of course, by Judas Priest. Just a cool looking video.
Yeah, I just grabbed some gaming video stuff because it just went really well with that song. So, but yeah, I dig the way that one came out actually. But Kick the Wicked is kind of moved into that diverse space. So we have everything from we move from metal to rock funk to regular rock, and we just kind of move across that spectrum because that's just what we dig. We really haven't been sticking to one specific space. So anyway, that's where we are.
Cool.
Kick the Wicked right now is going after the Grammy run here coming up soon.
That's kind of cool because in prepping for interview day, I of course checked out the lyric video you have up. I urge people to check out for the song "Spit It Out." That's a pretty cool song. Elements of hard rock and metal. The song I really liked was "Free Me." I mean, like you're saying, if you just go by kind of these two songs, they both are very different sounding, and yet great sounding tunes. Like I'd almost dare say "Free Me" is kind of a hard rock pop tune, but just really catchy, really pleasing to the ears. And I think maybe with the exception of Farmer Bob, the one thing like even Fiction Syxx and all your projects have in common is great songs, great songwriting, and I think that's what you really need for any original band.
Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, Free Me was, so what was really interesting and was great working with Scott is that Free Me actually is a song I wrote in 1994, and I actually recorded it on a 4-track, ponging it back and forth to like boombox. And so I took this old tape and sent it to, and made it to digital and sent it over to Scott, and he turned it into that really cool funkified rock version of that original song. And that's actually Scott playing the guitar lead on that one. I played the lead on Spit It Out that you mentioned, but that's Scott playing the guitar lead on Free Me. Scott's really excellent guitar player as well. So.
And we were talking about when Farmer Bob first got started during the pandemic, it was kind of started as a fun little project. And I understand at the time that you guys had never actually been in the same room together, these songs. So my question is, now that you've kind of been doing all this work together this last time, have you guys actually ever met face to face? Because that's kind of an amazing part of his story, I think.
Yeah, well, Rory and I have actually met face to face. Funny story is that Rory and I were actually in a band back in 1991, and there's actually videos on YouTube of us playing a live show in Slidell, Louisiana. And then Scott knew Rory because Scott's actually from the Gulf Coast area as well. He moved to Orlando later. So there is a connection there. I haven't met Scott face to face yet, but eventually we will. But in today's space, that's not uncommon.
And that's why I bring it up, because I mean, it's not as uncommon as it once was. But I mean, I bring it up too because it's amazing that I mean, maybe it's because of my age and when I came up that back in the day, I mean, I remember all the great albums I grew up on. You can kind of tell the difference because some like Deep Purple and Kiss back in the day, they made those classic albums. They were in the same studio. They were in the same room. And it's just amazing because, I followed your career, and like Farmer Bob, all these cool covers you guys have done and videos. To find out that you and Scott have never met face to face, you've never been in the same room, and yet the stuff sounds so flawless. It sounds so perfect. That just is amazing, for me to even kind of think about that.
Yeah, well, it's a testament to, in the case of Farmer Bob and Kick the Wicked, that's a testament to Scott. He does all the production and engineering and stuff, and and Rory's just amazing because he can map stuff out. So whatever is sent over to him, he's a pro at laying down the drums, and Scott picks out some really great sounds to go with everything. So. And then on the side of Fiction Syxx, that's been J.K. Northrup. He does the same thing. He produces and engineers all that stuff. And so I have to give kudos to them. Of course, collectively, it's all the players that make a specific sound. But, but ultimately, it comes down to you can have crappy production with some really good players. So it's really nice to have awesome production.
Yeah, and I think that's just the beauty of modern technology. I mean, again, when I was coming up anyways, a band, it was almost impossible for a band to even get a record out unless you had a record deal. It's not really, I mean, a garage band can put together a CD and get it out on the internet. And so, you want it to sound a little better than a garage band, but the point being, it's just so different than what it once was.
Yeah, well, I still love the feeling of being, I've been in the big studios. I recorded at Moore Sound Studios with Persian Risk in Tampa, Florida. I recorded in the House of Music, which is no longer around, but it was a famous studio in West Orange, New Jersey, where we were recording on 2-inch tape and huge rooms and stuff. So I remember that feeling too. So it's vastly different. I do actually prefer the band to be in one room and live it and put it all together, but it's just not a reality anymore. But so we find ways to get that feel. We find kind of unique ways to try to make it sound as much like we're in the same room as possible.
And it's just I mean, even I think the last album Sammy Hagar put out with his band The Circle was a bunch of cool kind of cover tunes, and they did a video for each song. They recorded it all over Zoom. Again, you do what you have to, and it's the new modern way. And I just kind of love that about the modern technology, that you do what you have to. Even during the pandemic, I love many bands were kind of doing these streaming shows or these things on Facebook, and then all of a sudden Facebook wanted to kind of get a piece of it and started shutting those things down. But I love the fact for a while the bands found a way to kind of get around not doing live shows. Okay, well, we can't do live shows, so we got to figure something out.
Right. And music lives in us. We artists, we can't. It's just something that's a part of me. So I'll continue to do it. Whoever wants to continue to do it with me, that's great.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm really digging what Kick the Wicked is doing. There's just some really good stuff coming out of this group, and I'm looking forward to actually finishing this EP and seeing what everybody else thinks and what the voting members of the Recording Academy think, and hopefully it does something. So
for Kick the Wicked, are you the primary songwriter, or does everybody contribute to the writing?
Everybody contributes to the writing, so it works in different ways. I'll give you an example. Spit It Out was something that I riffed here in my room with nothing more than like an iPhone and me kind of singing over it. And then I went in the other room and and just laid down a rough of it in the studio area, and then sang like a guide track, and then just sent that to Scott, and then Scott turned it into the monstrous thing that you hear now. So to me, that's a collective of everybody writing. That what comes out as the end result. And with Free Me, he took that 4-track version I had and he put, his spin on stuff. And so to me, that's writing and that's chemistry. Split with, like, for instance, the song "The Journey." That was the opposite way. Scott wrote that, and he sent all the music over, and then I came up with a melody line and a vocal, and then he came back and did this idea for the two cool little spots in the chorus that answer back, and then I sang those, but that was Scott's idea. So, so there's kind of this back and forth that turns into kind of the way to have that chemistry in writing. So it's a mixture, really.
And I'm assuming, like, with these Kick the Wicked songs, part of the reason they sound so different, that may be your intent to kind of not have every song sound exactly the same, but I'm also assuming having different people that contribute to the writing, they bring in their kind of influence. Kind of like if you look at the Beatles, they're considered a rock band, a pop band. I mean, even the Beatles, like, people might be surprised to learn that when I tell you that Helter Skelter, it's not a Motley Crue tune, no, it's a Beatles tune. That's probably as metal as the Beatles ever got, but then they can also do a beautiful ballad like, Let It Be.
Oh yeah, Let It Be was fantastic, and the thing was that actually it was Aerosmith, I think, that redid "Come Together," which was originally with the Beatles. But it's well, what can you say? It's the Beatles; they were great. So
yeah, I mean, I was talking about this with somebody the other day that I got that greatest hits they put out a couple of years back called the Number Ones, and what that is it is a collection of their 27 number one hits. Just think about that for a minute. It's hard enough for any band to have a single number one, let alone 27 of them.
Yeah, they were sick, so I don't even know what to say. What's funny is I was watching a video with my wife the other day, and of all things, it was Maroon 5 doing "I Want Move Like Jagger." Oh wow! And they have, but the reason why they have a little segment on the beginning of it is Mick Jagger talking, and he says, I'm surprised we've actually, lasted this long. I figure we have another year.
I mean,
they've been around for what, 50?
Yeah, I think maybe even 60 or something like that. I mean, they've had one guy that already died, Charlie Watts, last year, but the rest of them are still going. And I hear Mick and Keith joking about they're going to die on stage probably, but you got to hand it to those guys. I mean, Mick Jagger even had a heart attack, and he's still up there rocking out.
Yeah, it's in our blood. We can't help it. It's some call it an issue, I guess, but it's an issue that I'm going to continue to carry the torch for.
And of course, Mark, besides being a great guitar player and songwriter, of course you're a great singer. I was curious, like, when you were coming up as a musician, did you start out as maybe a guitar player like a lot of people and kind of morph into being a singer, maybe because you were the guy who had the best voice in the band, or what's your story there?
Well, it was actually an interesting transition. So actually I started late. I was a tenor sax player starting in 7th grade. And I didn't pick up the guitar until I was like 17.
Wow.
So I was a late starter, but 6 months later I realized I had a knack to play guitar. So I did that for a really long time, and then I would sing a little bit just to write. Mm-hmm. But then eventually, when I was in the band Persian Risk and I was doing live shows, there was a vocal teacher in the area who taught Janie Lane and a couple of guys from the Backstreet Boys, a guy from Florida, Ron Feldman. He passed away some years ago. God rest his soul, a great guy. But he saw us and he said, "Why are you singing backup? You got a great voice. I can hear it bleeding out from behind. Why don't you come see me?" And he gave me a card, and I started taking vocal lessons with him. And then from there, I realized, hey, I can sing. And he told me I need to be up in front. So maybe he told a lot of others that too. Maybe that was his gift. But he's the one who really kind of pushed me. Now,
is he the first guy that ever kind of told you that? Like, hey, Mark, you're a pretty good singer. I mean, anybody else ever tell you that? How surprised were you when this guy came up to you?
Yeah, there was a funny story. So I was recording at a place called the Power Station in New York.
Oh, I've heard about
And I was I was in there and I was doing a metal song. I'm all, like geared up and spikes and everything else. The guy stops the tape and he looks at me and goes, "Have you ever thought about, because I was just singing a guide track to, get ready to bring another singer in." He says, "Have you ever thought about singing dance music?" And I was like appalled at the time.
Wow.
Here I am, with this jet black hair and spikes, and I'm singing like, a Judas Priest Iron Maiden kind of tune. And he asked me if I ever thought about singing pop music, and so I guess apparently he must have heard something in my voice.
That's funny.
But, maybe I should have took him up on it. Maybe I would have had enough money, from singing pop music to convert over to heavy metal.
Well, you got quite a bit of experience, like working in professional studios. The Power Station. I've never been there, but I happen to know back in the day. That's where Bon Jovi recorded a lot of his demos and stuff, and I think that studio is even owned by his cousin, which was a big-time producer, Tony Bon Jovi.
Yeah, well, actually, he had an uncle there, Bon Jovi, who was at that station. I met him only like once or twice, his uncle, that you're right. There was a connection there with Bon Jovi, but there was a connection with a lot of us in the Jersey area because I was in a band and recording with Dean Fasano, who was involved with Prophet. He was on the first Prophet album. Oh wow! And he also did some work with. He was the first singer for Bonham before the other guy came in. Okay. And so Dean was in a band with Richie Sambora called Mercy and then Message. I got a couple tracks on one of the live versions of Message with Richie Sambora. How cool is that? Wow. They're only like 200 pressed, but they're out there like 200 CDs.
And do you have do you have that for like in your archives, like a demo or anything of that?
Yeah, actually, you can hear the two tracks I did with Dean that were on that, and the live versions of Message are also on YouTube. You can find them pretty easily. But if you were to type in like Message and Lanoue, it should pop up the two tracks that were actually on that.
Interesting. And you happen to mention Janie Lane, and I don't know if you realize that as we're sitting here doing this interview, it was 11 years ago that he passed away, and a lot of people don't realize that Janie, even like Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, those guys started out as drummers, and then
that's right. Yep. Yeah, he was a drummer in Florida, and he was taking lessons from that guy Ron Feldman. A friend of mine, Chris Helton, actually, who was a photographer and a musician out of Florida, was very good friends with Janie. As a matter of fact, the last song done by Janie was actually a feature on a Liberty and Justice album that my buddy J.K. Northrup from Fiction Syxx actually played on and wrote with them. It's called a song called I believe it was called Sin. It's a beautiful song.
I'll have to check that out.
Janie just really sounds fantastic on it.
Yeah, I hope that stuff comes out. Gets kind of some kind of an official release one day. It'd be kind of cool for the Janie fans. It seems like
it's out there. Yeah. If you go out there, you look type in Liberty and Justice and Sin SIN, and you'll find it. It's a beautiful song. And so, Mark,
you were mentioning in regards to Kick the Wicked that it's being considered for a Grammy consideration or something. Could you talk a little bit about that, or what exactly?
Yeah, so there's different steps in the Grammy process. So what happens is songs are submitted, and they're submitted under different categories. In my case, the two songs, one will be rock song, and the other one will be metal performance.
Wow.
And what will happen is it goes through what we call a first round of consideration. And the voting members of the Recording Academy vote in different categories, and they vote for songs and artists in those categories. And whoever gets the most in the top 5 get the 5 nominations that are within those spots. So that's kind of how the process works. And then it goes through a second round in December, where then they decide, who the winner is going to be, right? From each one of the categories. And then they have their show the following year, and it'll be in 2023. So it's a process.
Would you be notified, like, if once they make the decision of who's going to, be the winners of it? Would you be, would you learn of that before the Grammy show?
I don't think so. I think what they do is they let you know who the nominees are, which is like in November.
Oh, cool.
And then in December they do the voting, and then you win. Yeah, they find out who wins, I believe, at the show. So, but it's a cool process. A friend of mine who played on several of the songs he played with Richie in a band called Sharp Frenzy, and he also played the piano on the song "Got Nothing to Lose" on the first Kiss album.
Oh,
His name is Bruce Stephen Foster, a really good friend out of New Jersey, and a keyboard player. He wrote a couple songs with Richie, a beautiful song called World, and he also wrote a song called The Answer on the first Richie Sambora solo album. They're beautiful songs. But anyway, what I'm getting to is he's a Grammy nominee. He actually was nominated with Frank Stallone, Sylvester Stallone's brother, on that Staying Alive
track. Wow.
movie. There's a track that he was on. So, yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. So, I mean, just think about band just kind of starting up. How cool would that be to at least be one of the nominees? I mean, your first year out with this. Talking about Kick the Wicked.
Awesome.
And because you mentioned last time I'd interviewed you a while back about Fiction Syxx had also received a similar nod. Did you guys? How did that work out for Fiction Syxx?
Yeah, so we weren't nominated. We were in the first round of consideration, but what happens is, depending on the year, sometimes some years are more flooded than others. Like last year the metal performance section was really flooded, and like Dream Theater and all these other bands all put out an album at that point, and that part was just really flooded. So it really depends on a few things. How many people are entering, how many people are there to vote on. How sometimes it's something hard to get away from. How big are their names? Sometimes that has a little bit of an effect on people, right? So, and it's not because it's a corrupt system. It's just because people tend to really like specific names. Like when you hear AC/DC, oh man, I love AC/DC. Their last album may not be the best, but it's still they're AC/DC, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when you tune into the Oscar Awards, and especially these days. I mean, half the movies I never even heard of, or I've never even seen. Like, what the hell is that? Yeah. So I do see that now. In regards to Fiction Syxx, do you guys have anything going on with some new music, or you still working the last album?
Yeah, well, Fiction Syxx is kind of on hiatus right now. The last album was fantastic, and I got to say, the three albums, it's been a little bit frustrating because the first three albums are great albums, and the playing on it and the people that I've been honored to be surrounded with were fantastic.
And it seems like it seems like anytime you guys drop a new CD or even a new video or something, seems like you get great response. It's not like lack of a fan base or lack of people buying the music. So it's kind of interesting to hear that you still got that struggle.
Well, the issue is that we live in a different world. So it's not only just a saturated market. The rock is really huge in Europe, but the problem is if you don't have enough people talking about it, like the talking heads, as I call them, they're still talking about bands that have one original member left in it, probably haven't written a good song in 20 years, and some that don't even have any original members left in it. It's just because it's a name, they keep talking about them, and it's like, look, man, there are some good new bands out there, whether they're younger or older people. There's new music, there's new bands. Why don't you give them a go? Because they're always complaining, none of them win the awards. Well, maybe if you gave some of the new ones a chance, maybe somebody would win one.
Well, yeah, I mean, the other thing with the awards too, I think, is especially talking about the Grammys. I mean, they've always to me, they never really got the metal or hard rock category right. I mean, oftentimes, you even tune into the ceremony and you find out later who won the award, because a lot of times they won't even do it. During somebody they'll get their award off. Off the stage.
Yeah, they have a new guard in there now who are really trying to make it better, and they're trying to expand, and they're trying to do things to, because they all hear you.
Yeah.
You know, it's all coming in, and and also you got to take into account too, the U.S. has been a little bit kind of different. So in the '80s, you had all these rock people where the others are trying to get a little bit of an inch in there to try and get into the awards. Now you have rocka sitting on the outside looking in, where pop is the huge, pop and hip hop and stuff are the huge things that occur now. So they're trying to make that a bit more applicable, and they're even trying to become more applicable to indies. So they're really trying to give it a go. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
But I agree that I would like to see a bit more of a opening there to where you can see those bands and you can see what's going on. But we'll see. Everything is it takes work.
It's a process. I mean, and I was curious, being that your musicians had some of your songs, submitted for Grammy consideration. Do you get to do you get to sit on any kind of board or vote for what you think of the other artists?
Well, I am considered what's called a voting member, so I can vote in categories to be part of that process. I'm not on any of the committees right now. I'm a new member. I just became a member last year.
Oh wow!
So
that's pretty exciting.
I'm one of the newbies.
So as a newbie, Mark, and a musician, yourself, because you're a working musician, and you kind of, I think, maybe understand what all is involved in the music industry, as opposed to some people that are just kind of not even a musician, but they might somehow be on that Grammy board. Do you how serious do you take this? Like, do you really sit there? I mean, like, I guess as a newbie, what do you get to do? Is my question.
Well, actually, I can apply to some of the boards. I am I am in the Texas chapter, which is one of the chapters nearby here, and you can actually apply to become a governor. You can get onto certain boards. So there is a process that you can be voted into that. So they do have kind of like a democratic process where people can vote them in. And they've also been working on a lot of other things. Like now the voting members actually have a lot more power and say as to actually who does get nominated. They've done some stuff with their committees, and it's kind of nice. So
is that something you're very
making some progress? Yeah.
Is that something you're very much interested? Like, and if you got the opportunity to be on one of the boards, that's something you'd want to do?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to be a governor. A good friend of mine, Kit Wakely, you should check it out. It's really cool. It's a thing called Sinners and Saints.
Okay,
and,
wow.
And he has like this melodic or orchestral metal kind of thing he does with violins and keyboards, and it's really cool. Great guy too. Really like Kit. He's awesome. But he's a governor on one of the in one of the chapters, and so that's something that we all strive to do. Try to make things better and try to be a part of the process. So, but it's a democratic process within. So you roll with the punches, and you go the next year and you apply. So
and like I said, Mark, earlier in the interview today, one thing I always enjoy talking to you about is you're a singer, a guitar player, a songwriter. You're kind of one of those guys that at least to me, kind of do it all. Now, when you were growing up, who would you say were some of your favorite singers, or maybe the guys that you kind of model yourself after that were an influence on you?
Yeah, I had an interesting mixed bag of singers. So Dennis DeYoung was a huge.
Styx, can't go wrong
really
there.
Dug Dennis DeYoung from Styx. Tommy Shaw as well, actually. Yeah. Different singers, but I liked both of them. Obviously, Rob Halford. Dio was definitely one of my big influences that I loved the vocals. But there's a lot of vocalists, but I tend to not try to channel in just certain vocalists. I've always been open to even a singer that I might not like as much. It's like, oh, that's really cool what they do. The same thing I do with guitar player. I love the vibrato. I don't really care much for the other stuff, but that vibrato is fantastic. So I try to focus in on the good, even within some of the stuff I don't care much for. I still look for the good stuff in it. So
it seems like to me, like in listening to your music, that probably when you do your guitar parts, for you it's more about maybe playing with feeling as opposed to just doing a flashy solo, making it work more for the song.
Yeah, I do both. There are times I love to throw some flash. I was like my vibrato. You could probably say I stole that from Ingve. My picking, the way I pick it, and the attack on my picks probably more like Gary Moore.
Interesting.
So it just really depends on. But I have lots of guitar players I love. Like Paul Gilbert is a monster.
Oh yeah.
Jason Becker was fantastic. It was so sad to see what happened to him, but he had such feel, great player. There's so many of them.
I just got to ask you. You mentioned Jason Becker. I mean, did you ever get a chance to see that movie they made about him? That documentary?
I saw parts of it.
Just amazing.
It will probably be too sad for me to watch because it must have been devastating when to be able not to be able to do what you love. That had to be very devastating.
The interesting thing about it is, I mean, it's so true that as you watch it, it's kind of a sad story. But at the same time, when he was diagnosed with that disease, like when he first joined up with the David Lee Roth band, and he got the chance to do that one album. He was diagnosed with that back in 1991. They told him that he probably he'd be dead in 3 or 4 years. 30 years later, he's still here. And as sad as the story is, he's in a wheelchair. And he's, his body's all messed up. But with the use of computers, I don't know, but he's still able to make beautiful music.
Yeah, he still writes. Matter of fact, if I remember correctly, I think his dad designed the computer he uses. Yeah, and it's a testament to them, because he's still able to write, and he can get all that out of his mind, and that's fantastic. I mean,
it's a little more so, but it kind of reminds me of the Rick Allen story. I mean, whoever thought that you'd have a one-armed drummer and the guy, still be playing the drums, but hey, he found a way too. And the reason I ask you about your influences, because the interesting thing, like even listening to the Fiction Syxx music and this new stuff you're doing with Kick the Wicked, like a lot of times you can listen to an album or a band and you kind of tell, okay, this guy was maybe influenced by, Van Halen or Deep Purple or whatever the case may be. And what's interesting, like even with the Fiction Syxx music, it's got a great original sound. I mean, you got your own kind of original vocal style. I don't think, like you said, I don't listen to Fiction Syxx and he's trying to sound like Ronnie James Dio. You're just doing your thing, and it comes out the way it comes out. And yet, I think that's a very hard thing to do, because a lot of times you might try to sound like you're influenced, but you've got something really fresh and original. When people listen to it, I don't think they can really pinpoint that he was influenced by this.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it's because exactly what I told you earlier. I try to pull the good things out of a lot of people, like Jeff Tate.
Yeah.
I love Jeff Tate's early stuff, Mindcrime, and the first album, things like that. I really was into Jeff Tate from Queensryche. So, and occasionally it'll pop out, but over John Ark from Fate's Warning.
Oh wow.
All those kind of vocalists. I love those vocalists. Heck, I like the pop vocalists.
Yeah.
So there's a number of those that I've listened to and taking things from. But I think it's because it's just a melting pot of so many influences. Like Tony Harnell. Tony Harnell's an amazing.
Very underrated. Underrated. Yeah. And before we wrap up the interview, I really want to talk a little more about Farmer Bob, because I really love some of these great covers. Just to I made a list to kind of go down. And just to kind of show people how diverse these covers are. First one I wrote down, of course, originally done by Kansas, Carry On My Wayward Son. I mean, you guys just knocked it out of the ballpark with that one.
Thanks. And that's Kit Wakely, actually, the guy I told you about from Sinners and Saints. He plays keys on that. Yeah.
And Danger Zone, I think that's the recent one you guys did, of course.
Yeah. I tried to sound a little bit like Kenny Loggins on that, just because it was like an anniversary song.
Yeah.
And so we tried to make it sound as close to the original as possible.
And another one I really dug, and this is kind of like maybe more pop-oriented, but it was always a cool song to me. Don't You Forget About Me, and I think that's somebody else singing on there. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my good friend Mark from the Mississippi Gulf Coast. He was in a band called Change to Eden back in the day, and but now he lives up in Georgia. But yeah, he knocked it out of the park. He sounds really good on that.
And then there's the other one that's kind of skipping my mind right now, but I know you guys did a great like STP cover with a female vocalist, and again, she just kind of knocked it out.
Yeah, that's Leah Mehta. She's from Malaysia.
Yeah.
She's also going to be in the first round of the Grammys with her stuff. She wins awards as well. But yeah, we have people that guest on there like Ronnie Monroe from Ex-Metal Church, who's now he just joined another group that Vicious Rumors. I think he's doing something with Vicious Rumors.
Oh wow,
now.
That's going to be cool to check out.
Yeah, he sings on the rocked up version of that April Wine song, I Like to Rock. He's the one singing on that. So
yeah, Ronnie Monroe, he's kind of trying to make a comeback because last several years, I mean, his wife, I think, died like two years ago. So
yeah, it was really sad.
Yeah.
I chatted with her several times before she passed, and I know that was a real big hit on him, and rightfully so. But I think he's doing well now.
Yeah.
And it's good to see that. He's a good guy.
Yeah, I mean, like just kind of following that story, he really stood by his wife, and I remember seeing a post where, when she shaved his head, he shaved his. I was like, man, that is just, that's love right there.
It's awesome, yeah. And let me tell you, that guy.
Yeah.
He can scream, dude.
Oh yeah. And he was in Metal Church even a while back, and I've loved everything he's done. And then another cool cover you guys did was of course Dreams in the Dark by Badlands. You were one to sing that one, right?
Yeah, and I loved doing that one because it's funny. That's one where Jakey Lee was an influence on me as a guitar player, and obviously Ray Gillen was an influence on me as a vocalist as well in a lot of ways. So it was kind of really cool to do that track, and that track's not easy to sing either.
And let me ask, when you do a track like that, I mean, like you said, you're influenced by Jakey Lee, and you loved Ray Gillen as a singer, but I mean, to me, it's kind of ultimate tribute to Ray because as great of a vocalist as he was, I think, unfortunately, like a lot of people, he died way too young, tragically young, and yet look at the impact he was still able to make with the few records he made.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I think so. Some of the singers we talk about, I think, are influencing a lot of the ones that are even like younger than me.
Yeah.
There's some singers out there. There's one singer out there right now that's really amazing vocalist, and he's influenced by the same kind of people that I was influenced by, like Ronnie James Dio and Ray Gillen and those kind of singers. So
in fact,
his name's Dino Julasek, and that guy's got a set of pipes on him, man. You should check him out. He's
That's the one that went out with Whitesnake recently, right?
Yeah, he's really, really good. He's one of those vocalists now that, every now and then you go through and you grab a couple vocalists, you go, oh man, that cat's really good.
Yeah,
he's one of those. So.
I don't know if there's any truth to this, but there's been rumors floating around because, David Coverdale supposedly is getting to the point where he wants to retire, and there's talk that he may be the new Coverdale when Whitesnake goes out on the road. I don't know how likely that is, but could you imagine? I mean, I think he would be the one guy who might be able to do that.
Yeah, Dino would be able to do it. He's really good. He's got nice tone. He's got range. He's got power.
Yeah.
Just really good vocalist.
And then two other things I wanted to ask you about is talk about Ronnie James Dio. You guys do a cool cover of Black Sabbath song "Children of the Sea." I mean, you guys nailed it on that one.
Yeah, we get a lot of compliments on that one. I pulled out my inner RJ Dio.
Yeah.
Ronnie came out. Yeah.
And then I think the final one I want to ask about is, and this is a cool song I always love, Megadeth's "Sweating Bullets."
Yeah, that one was fun, actually. Hello, it's me again.
Yeah. Did you almost feel like kind of a split personality just doing the vocal?
Yeah, and I tried to portray that in the video too. The person in the insane asylum. As a matter of fact, it's funny in that video. I'm actually holding my son. When my son was younger, he's 16 now, but he had a box of older, like stuffed animals and stuff that the kids like from like Minecraft and stuff. And there was an Enderman in there, and that's what I'm holding in that video. It's a Minecraft Enderman.
Oh wow! Now, how big of a Megadeth fan are you? Have you heard any of the new Megadeth music that's coming out?
I've heard some of the new stuff. I really dig Megadeth, and Dave was also a great guy. As a matter of fact, so Dave, the bass player who's no longer with them, he he was actually my rep for Peavey when I was endorsed by Peavey with Biloxi. Really great guy.
How cool is that?
But, you know, and of course Marty Freeman, what can you say?
Oh, yeah.
The band, that guy is freaking a beast on the guitar, too, so.
Oh, wow. And so, finally, last thing I want to ask you about before we wrap it up is, what are the plans for Kick the Wicked? I mean, I know you guys are working on new music, like, is the plan to release like a full length, an EP, and how do you?
We're gonna have an EP first. It really depends on how the fans drive things, right?
Uh-huh.
You know, a band can only do what they can do within the means of what the fans allow them to do. Is we do the best we can to put out as much music as we can. We'd love to play live. We'd love to do all that kind of stuff. That's really driven by the fan base. So.
Well, that's interesting. So I mean. So right now the plan, I guess, is as you record these songs, you'll maybe do like you've been doing, and you'll drop them like one by one. But maybe when you get enough for an EP, then you'll say, okay, we'll try to put something out there.
That's the plan. Yeah, it is the plan to put out an EP. Yeah.
And so, how have people been reacting? I mean, are you finding that more and more people kind of discovering Kick the Wicked, or do you think that the word isn't out just yet about the band?
No, it's actually gaining speed. It's been being played also on Galaxy 107 FM in New Zealand, which is going out to several other countries, and they're really digging it. Of course, Spit It Out is on the top of all of that. Matter of fact, somebody just did a reaction to Spit It Out not long ago, and they even dropped the F-bomb. They were blown away by it when it came on. So we feel really good about the music, and we're getting good response back from it.
And so the final question I have for you, like, and we were talking about Farmer Bob, this cool little cover, I guess, project you have. Like on the songs where you have other people come in and sing, is it a matter of you just think that maybe that somebody else could do a better job than you, or how do you guys decide? Okay, let's get somebody else.
No, sometimes it's just we like to give other artists a chance to come in and play in the sandbox with us. Yeah. In other cases, there are some things I just don't sound the way that I want it to sound, and somebody else might have a better sound. Like we do a Van Halen tune with like a David Lee Roth, one of the David Lee Roth years, and I just don't sound good on David Lee Roth. Another guy came in and did. So it's one of those kind of things. And in the case of Stone Temple Pilots, I can certainly sing Stone Temple Pilots and Alice in Chains and those, no problem. But we wanted to let somebody else come in and do it. We thought it was cool that it was a female that came in and did it. And so it just really depends on the situation. Like, I won't sing certain songs. Like, I cannot sound like Joe Elliott. I cannot sound like the guy from Cinderella. I can sing it. I can hit the ranges. I just don't sound like them. And I refuse to put a tribute out. We refuse to put a tribute out that doesn't at least sound good to be a tribute. So. Well,
I think it's cool, like bringing other people, and not that you can't do it, but like I always loved a band like Kiss because they had more than one person that could sing, and when you're listening to a record, it makes it fun to listen to that not one guy is doing everything.
Exactly. It gives it a little bit of flavor.
Yeah. well, Mark, I enjoyed talking again, and we'll have to do it again down the line, but I promise you, as you continue to release more music with Kick the Wicked, just reach out to me and we can further promote the band. I'd love to help you with that. And when we post the interview we just did, I'm going to post some of the tracks so people can check it out.
I certainly will. If you know anybody in the guitar world out there, turn them on to it as well, because I think that's what something that hasn't really happened much with Fiction Syxx, Kick the Wicked, is they don't look in to see that, hey, the guitarist can play. So
and J.K. Northrup is one of those guys that I think he's a really pretty well-kept secret. What I mean by that is, as you know from working with him, he's been on the scene for I know that he used to be in King Cobra with Carmine Appice, and he's done a lot of other things as a producer, and he can sure shred with the best one, but it's amazing that more people don't know who he is.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. He's underrated. He's a great, talented guitar player, and it's sad that he's not known more across the.
But you gotta love him. But he sticks with it, and he's still doing it. So one day, who knows?
Exactly. So it was great talking to you, buddy. And,
okay. Take care.
We'll talk again soon.
Okay, Mark. I'll let you know.
Badlands.